screen here if I can, so that you can take a look at this first slide that's got some good information. Let's see here. I think I still need permission to share. Here we go. There we go. Thank you.
You're
Perfect.
welcome. And then I think that means let me know if you need any other capabilities, but I think we're good then.
Okay. Thank you. All right, we'll go into present mode. Here we go. So welcome to Financial Fitness. Can everybody see that okay? Is that up on your screens now? Okay, awesome. Yeah, if you don't mind, there's a link to the survey. You can either scan it right over here. It's just a very short getting to know you and little pre-class survey information. And then also in the comments, you can click right there. There's a link, and there's another link in the comments to the notes. I'm not going to have every single word I said typed up on the screen because that's annoying to look at. So, but if you'd like to reference what was talked about today and you don't want to scramble and have to handwrite it, they're all available in the notes for you as well. So maybe just another few moments to take a look at that. So a good opportunity if any latecomers want to show up here. Take just another moment or so. Okay. Looks like we've got a couple submissions.
Sorry, it looks like this QR code is a post-class survey. Are you wanting us to submit this now?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I thought that was the pre-class survey. My bad.
Oh, okay, that's okay. I'll just grab it from the notes then. It sounds like it's
Yeah,
there as well. Okay,
thank you about that. I'm sorry. I don't know why the
yeah,
QR code changed on me.
all good.
I'll have to repair that. Thank you. While we're filling that out then, especially because my little link here is inaccurate, I'm going to go ahead and start talking a little bit about myself, and then we can share about everybody else that's here today as well in a moment. So, hi, I'm Charlie. I'm a trans non-binary bookkeeper, also activist, parent, and educator. My former life was as a teacher, so I'm really excited about sharing what I know about bookkeeping and accounting now with you today in a way that's hopefully engaging and entertaining. I started Bridges Bookkeeping because I believe that you deserve more than just a bookkeeper. Business is hard enough as it is. You don't have to deal with all of the little details and also have somebody that's giving you an attitude about it or giving you frustrations about where's your paperwork and why don't you understand what's going on. You need somebody who's here to hold your hand and help you through all of the really tricky parts of the financial aspects of your business without making you feel uncomfortable about it. So that's what I'm here for. My whole motto and idea here is that I'm accounting for the people, which means offering accessible services. I offer some sliding scale pricing and also a pay it forward program, also respectful mentorship and compassionate support, like I was saying. My target clients are traditionally like historically undervalued people in our community, also pro-social and small businesses and emerging entrepreneurs. I'm especially excited to talk to people when they're right at the beginning of their business so I can help them get started off on the right foot. And also really love working with B Corps and nonprofits and other people who are trying to make a positive impact in the world. All right, so let's take a look. We've got a couple of people here today. Thanks, Genevieve and Brandon. And I think Rob is here as well, still filling out the survey. It looks like we're in some consultation businesses and FCOO. And it looks like I really wanted to get to the fun question about what brings a smile to your face. And I loved good people helping good people. That's an awesome response. Does anybody want to share, especially about their biggest concerns as a business owner? I could read them off, but I'd like to hear from you as well. What are you most concerned about?
Having a bookkeeper who's engaged.
Excellent. Anybody else want to share?
I'm less concerned about my own business, but as a fractional COO, I'm in a lot of businesses
Yeah,
most of them have pretty messy financial situations when I come in, and I don't have the bandwidth or the expertise to repair that. So always
excellent.
looking for folks who can become a part of that sort of network.
Great. Yeah, I love that. Developing a whole comprehensive care team. We'll actually talk about that in just a little bit. Excellent. Any other little comments or introductions here that anybody wants to say before we move on? Okay, well, it's lovely to meet you all. Thanks for being here. All right, so let's talk about how your business is a lot like your body, really. It's got a lot of different complicated systems. There's a vast array of intricate and complicated things going on. It can seem kind of overwhelmed and complicated. It's a little bit hard to tell if it's really healthy or what it needs sometimes. So that's what we're going to talk about today, why your financial health matters. We'll take a look at what you can find out about your business through your income statement, your balance sheet, and your cash flow reports. And then we'll also take a look at some of the accounting basics and how they all work together in this big picture. And then, like I said, we'll mention about who can help you along this journey with your care team and setting up a good financial plan. And also, if you've got any other questions, there's also a little post survey to see how we did today and a few bonus resources if you can hang out until the very end there. So, your financial health is really important. There's a lot of different things going on here. And if you don't understand exactly what's going on, you're not going to be able to make the decisions that you need to keep your business in good health. So we're going to take a look at things like the income statement and the balance sheet, like I said, and your cash flow. Before we get onto that part, though, I also wanted to, oh, we already discussed this part about why, what your biggest concerns are as an owner, and all of these things can definitely help you address those concerns, especially if you are, like you said, you don't have a bookkeeper that's really engaged in what you're doing or checking in, and you're kind of just left going, okay, well, I'm not sure what they need or what information is important or how often I need to report these things. It can be really frustrating. And like you said, when there's just too much going on in the business and there's not a lot of attention to these details, then figuring out the bigger picture of how everything flows together is nearly impossible. So let's figure out what we can do to make this a little bit easier. First, just take a breath. Close your eyes. What do you notice? Really take a minute and get into your body. Are you hungry or tired? Do we have anything hurting you, or do you have to go to the bathroom? Do you need to drink some water? There's all these different ways that we can check in with our vital signs to get a quick picture of what's going on in our bodies. What are some things that you do in your business to get a quick picture of what's going on? Does anybody have any quick, like, oh yeah, I do this, or I look at this? What are some things that are signals about your business and how it's feeling or doing?
I like to do quarterly planning and see
Excellent.
like how I did with my goals, and I also do a weekly scorecard.
Beautiful. Great.
Gold star for you, Genevieve. That's awesome.
Yeah, definitely. There's even just day-to-day things we can do, like keeping up to date on making sure that all of your accounts receivable are matched up and that your bills are being taken care of and that you have all of your cash actually deposited into the bank and checks as well, that you're checking that bank balance. So there's lots of formal ways that we can look into it, like those quarterly reports, but there's also little informal checks that you can be doing just to stay aware and stay on top of everything. So let's take a look at our first actual financial statement, the income statement. It's also called the profit and loss because it shows you your profits and your losses. So we're basically going to look at the revenue and think about it as like the calories that are coming into your body. If you're going to eat a lot of healthy food, it's going to give you a lot of good energy. When you think about your expenses, this is kind of like what are you spending that energy on? How are you burning your calories to make things happen in the world in your business? And then what's left here is this net income that we're looking for, which is sort of the leftover energy balance. Like, what do you have enough energy left over to actually go and do the things in the world that you want to do with your business or with your body? There's also some interesting pieces that go inside of this, like the cost of goods sold. Those are going to be things that you have to spend before you can even produce the item that you're trying to sell or the service you're trying to provide. So, like if you had to go and harvest the food that you were going to actually eat so that you could go and provide your services, that would be considered your cost of goods. And we'll take that out before we start thinking about your expenses. The expenses come out as more of the things that are happening as you're operating your business, the things that are just keeping you alive just to be you, not necessarily to produce the services or the goods that you're selling to customers. There's also the gross profit. That's the energy that you actually gain after subtracting that cost of goods. And so then that gross profit is how we take away the expenses to get the net profit or the net income. And just like eating too much or too little can impact your body, if you've got an imbalanced income and expenses, you're going to have imbalanced finances and it'll be hard to really make things happen. You'll be strapped for cash. Your energy and your ability to function will benefit from monitoring your intakes and outputs with those regular self checks that we were talking about. So this is what an example of the income statement looks like. Your income is basically your revenue coming in. It's not always the same thing as your cash. Your revenue coming in doesn't necessarily equate to the cash that you have because it gets spent in lots of different ways. But it's a good way that you can look here and just see the different ways that it comes in. And then we can also look at the cost of goods that it took to actually create those things that you sold. And then, as I said, you'll find more information on the bottom part of the report that talks about your actual expenses, all that energy going out. And then this is the part that people will hear talked about a lot, the bottom line. It's basically that information about the actual net operating income. After you've taken out your cost of goods, after your expenses, are you in the black? Are you having a positive income or are you in the red? So you want to be definitely in the black, maintaining positive income over time. Let's talk a little bit about the balance sheet now. In the balance sheet, it's sometimes called the statement of financial position, but usually only with nonprofits. Your assets are going to equate to basically like the muscles and the bones and the stored energy. It kind of shows you everything that you've got that gives you the strength and the stability to be a business or to be a human body. Your liabilities are going to refer more to like the investments or potential weaknesses that you have. They're not always a bad thing, but they can be a sign of instability if there's too many liabilities going on. So you can kind of think of it as things that you're going to promise to pay back later or energy that someone has invested in you that you will then have to give back to them before you can spend it on your own obligations and your own health. Your equity is more like your overall health. It's going to show you like what is the net result of all of the efforts after you've addressed all these liabilities. And that's why, let's see. Okay, well, let's look at an example of this one first, actually. So here we see you've got your assets listed first, and they're always listed in the order of liquidity. So from the easiest to spend first, like cash in your bank account is super easy to get at. But then a little bit further down, you got accounts receivable where, okay, I've got to go hound my client to get that money back from them. Now I can spend it. Or you've got other things that are a little bit harder to get rid of, like fixed assets. If you had to, you could sell them, but that would be kind of a process. So you always want to understand, do you have a lot of money that's easy to spend, or is it more wrapped up in things that are technically assets, but not really liquid or able to be spent? And then on the second part of this, you'll see more about the liabilities and the equity part of things. So what sorts of loans do we have out there? What sorts of bills do we still need to pay? What kinds of things are sort of our obligations before we actually can think about spending this money on our company or taking a profit from our equity? And like we said, the equity down here is showing you exactly what's left after you've taken out everything else. It's what have you invested in the business minus everything that's been spent on it and considering all the income that's come in as well. Do you have any questions about this part so far? Okay, great, awesome. Next, we'll look at the cash flow statement. This is another one that people don't necessarily look at as often, I found, and can be really helpful. On the cash flow statement, you'll see a couple different things. There's operating cash, which is sort of like your oxygen. It's the stuff that you need for day-to-day functioning. Do you have enough kind of flowing in and out to make everything happen comfortably? It'll also talk about your investing cash flow, which I equate more to like your exercise, because when you can make these investments, then you can improve your business, you can build up your stamina or your power, your spending power. And then if you need financing, that's a little bit more like a transfusion. It's sort of like kind of support to grow or recover if you've had something happen that you need to kind of mitigate the situation to. So like the other statements too, we want to always look for balance here and seeing a good balance between things that are able to keep the business operating and then growing into the future, and then also having financing available if you need to make kind of other extenuating circumstances happen. And here's what the cash flow looks like. An example of it, like you can see, you've got all the operating activities, the things that are kind of going in and out here, and then the things that you've invested in that, like I said, you could use as an asset, and then also your financing activities, the things that are things that you're going to have to pay back later. Any questions on this part? Okay. Very briefly, I don't want to go too much into all of the nitty-gritty on accounting because this could be a really long conversation, but just to give you a sort of general picture of why the accounting equation is so important when you're looking at that balance sheet, especially, you've got your assets, that's your big, strong power and energy. I don't know why these are coming up in a weird order. We'll just click them all in place. And then the liabilities are all those external factors that you have to deal with to help things go smoothly. And your equity is your owner contributions. So when you're really thinking of what you've put into the business and then what other people have helped you put into the business, but that should all equal the assets that you have. That's what you can actually do with what you have in your business. And your goal is going to be to maximize their assets gained through your efforts and contributions, right? If you don't have enough assets, you're just in the red, you're not a functioning business. And if all of your assets are actually coming from liabilities, that's not great either because you're going to owe that all back to those people. You want to have things that are actually created by your efforts or your investments so that you can take them home at the end of the day. Right. And then just for a little bit more on the accounting basics here, we're going to talk about kind of accounting versus finance. So, didn't mean to click that one yet. Gathering and sorting all of the information from your business accurately is going to generate reliable financial statements to inform your business decisions. So the accounting is kind of the organizing and keeping it all straight, and then the financial decision making can happen because of that accurate accounting. So to help us with that, we have something called GAAP, which is the generally accepted accounting principles or accounting practices. And it's basically just standards and conventions for reporting financial information about your business. They're only legally required for publicly traded companies, but most privately traded companies tend to try to follow these as well because they are just the best practices for keeping everything organized and tax compliant. Your general ledger, oh, I don't know when, back now, hang on. There we go, okay. Your general ledger is what we actually call like the books. When someone talks about you've got your books, it's the general ledger, essentially. All the transactions from your business are all stored in different accounts within this general ledger. And it's made up of credits and debits. Each of these accounts will have either a credit or a debit normal balance. And when you think about your chart of accounts, it's kind of going to be the way that you organize everything. And so how organized those accounts are will determine how accurate your reports are as well. Like I said, there's credits and debits involved. They don't mean exactly the same thing that you see on your bank statement where a credit is coming in and a debit is going out. It can get a little bit complicated, and that's where having an understanding of the bigger accounting equation can help you. But generally, you just want to know that some accounts are supposed to be negative and some are supposed to be positive or a credit or a debit, because then they equal out when they balance in that equation. So talk to me more on that one a different day, because that's a whole other topic. When you want to put something into the general ledger, you're going to use a journal entry. And these can be things that you are manually typing in, or it can be something that is automatically generated for you by something like QuickBooks or NetSuite. And the important thing to remember there is that you're keeping track and monitoring, even if it's automatically generated, that it is actually accurately matching what's in your books and what needs to happen. Another thing that will happen mostly in the background, we don't see a whole lot of this happening in front of you as a business owner, but the trial balance is where you take all of the different accounts that you have and line up all of the ones that should be debits and all the ones that should be credits. And at the bottom, they should equal each other. And so that's how we kind of double check. And that's how we're going to create those financial reports that we were talking about earlier. Let's see. Oh, I also wanted to mention, this is very cool that this is not some new idea. This has been around since the 1400s. This is Luca Bartolome Spaccioli, who was the guy who actually codified it in 1945. And it's been the same system that's been working for many years. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Just add some more technology to make it even easier. yeah, the great thing about the double entry method is that when you're double entry everything, you are double checking. So it's always going to be accurate. All right, any questions about accounting in general? I'm sure there's plenty, but we'll talk about more at a different time. All right, so the big picture, and I'd like kind of audience participation here if you don't mind. We've got a couple different things here. The income, balance sheet, cash flow. Does anybody want to just pop out anything that you would say about what's the income statement, the balance sheet, the cash flow? What are they doing for us? What are their main roles?
Well, the cash flows literally like your blood pressure. It's telling you how much is flowing through your business at any given time. It lets you know whether or not you need to anticipate that you're going to, what do I want to say, need to anticipate some future expense
Yeah,
kind of thing. Like if you have an annual bill that's coming up, right? So
definitely. Yep.
I'm interested in cash flow projection
Yeah,
personally, but yeah.
excellent. Got these in kind of a weird order. Anyways, anybody want to talk a little bit about the income statement? That's the one that's basically just tracking the short-term energy, right? Like your profits and losses. Balance
Usually,
sheet. Oh yeah, sorry.
I was just gonna say the P&L is usually like a specific period of time, right? Where
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying. Yeah, the income statement is for like a specific period. The balance sheet is for kind of one date in time. And that's where it's going to show your overall health and resources. So that makes sense that with the income statements over that period of time, it's because things are kind of moving in and out, where the balance sheet is like a snapshot. Like right now, you just went to the doctor. How are you doing today? And that's what the balance sheet will show you. Let me talk a little bit about cash flow. And then the last bit here that we've mentioned briefly is your chart of accounts. If you want to have all of these statements have accurate information, then you need to have your chart of accounts be really well organized and clear and concise. If you've got things that are kind of all over the place, or maybe there's two accounts that mean basically the same thing, then you have inaccurate information because you don't know what's actually for what. So it's definitely like the stable backbone to help you create all these useful reports on top of it. All right, let's take a look at your care team. So there's lots of different people that can actually help you out on this journey. You're not alone, that's for sure. Let's see, you've got, oh, get my notes back out here. Thanks for your patience. Here we go. Okay, so we have your CFO, the Chief Financial Officer, and this could be someone who is in-house, or it could actually be someone who's, like you said, a fractional CFO that goes around and does this for other businesses. And their job is basically to help navigate the whole big picture as an advisor on the strategic financial planning and to help facilitate investor relations and other kinds of projects. Since we have a fractional CFO here, would you like to comment on any other things that you do in your job, in your world?
Just to clarify, I'm a fractional COO.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, good.
Definitely.
You're like, I don't want to be a CFO.
Yeah, sorry. So yeah, this would be someone like my good friend Alex, who has been a bookkeeper for a long time and is now growing to a place where they want to help companies do more of the bigger picture. Like, okay, we noticed that your books are a little bit wonky, but really I noticed that there's some workflows in your whole business that could be addressed to make it flow even more smoothly. So finding somebody who can help coach you through your larger plan about here's what we want to do to get you into this new position. Like if you've got a goal for a sport that you're trying to play or some kind of fitness goal, you need somebody to help you say, here's how we're going to get there. And here's like also your progress along the way. There's also CPAs, who I think of a little bit more like your actual medical doctor, because they're there to make sure that everything is absolutely in compliance with the government regulations for filing your taxes and making sure that everything is in the correctly organized way so that it matches when you're trying to make these financial reports and things as well. So they're definitely there to help you with a little bit of the financial planning, but specifically, they're also very focused on making sure that you're meeting all of the compliance rules for taxes and things. And then your bookkeeper is, I think of them kind of like your personal fitness coach, or even kind of like could could be like a meal coach as well, somebody who's helping you look at more of the nitty gritty. Like the CFO can say, here's the big picture that we're getting to. And then the bookkeeper can help you go, okay, what are the small systems that we need to put in place to make it easier for you to track these expenses, or to help you separate what you're spending on payroll so that it's not getting, messed up with your other liabilities or things that you have to pay. So there's lots of different things you can choose. You could do a bookkeeper that's in-house, or you could just do it all yourself, where you're the one that's kind of going and researching what's the best workout or what's the best meal plan. Or you could have somebody that comes in and just sort of gives you general advice every like quarter or every month. Or you could have somebody who comes in and is like, all right, I'm going to make the menu for you. I'm going to cut up all the vegetables. So all you have to do is put them in the frying pan, So it kind of depends on your level of how much you want to be involved in the day-to-day actual bookkeeping tasks. But my recommendation is definitely that you at least understand what's going on. Even if you're going to hire somebody else to say, okay, you do the bookkeeping, I don't want to have to worry about that. You should definitely understand what that bookkeeper is doing for you and figure out how to communicate with them best, or they should be able to communicate with you about here's what's happening in your business, and here's some areas where we see that could be improved, and also just making sure that you're keeping up on getting all of your reporting and things in on time. That's kind of my biggest takeaway for this class today, is that no matter what you're doing in your business, if you can just be as consistent with your financial documents and keeping everything together as much as possible, then you'll always have balanced books and everything will make sense because you'll know exactly what's going on. You can solve problems really quickly if you can catch them early. Sort of like an ounce of prevention is worth 1,000,000 pounds of cure, because it's so much more expensive and complicated if you have to hire somebody to go back and clean up your books later when you need this information, or you get to a point where you're saying, oh man, I really wish that I could, purchase this new inventory item, but I just don't know if I actually have the funds. Or, you know what, hey, let's go ahead, let's make this remodeling project happen. And then, oh shoot, we can't afford to pay our employees. There's a lot of instances where it's not just about, oh, can I afford my taxes or not, but like, can I really be a successful business? And you just don't know if you don't have solid books. So your care team's there to help you out, helping you stay on top of your financial health and fitness. All right, let's talk about the things that you're going to do for your financial care plan. We've got a couple things on homework here. So first, oops, not that way. There we go. First, we want to track income and expenses consistently. Like I was just saying, whatever you're doing, make sure that you're keeping track of it somehow. You can do that, like I said, in your own Excel spreadsheet. You could even keep it in a paper ledger if you're really into being old school, but a lot of people are using things like QuickBooks or NetSuite or some other kind of software. Also, build your assets and reduce your liabilities. Like I said, liabilities aren't the end of the world. We often need to use liabilities to help us build our businesses, but make sure that you're doing it in a way that is over time, increasing your assets and reducing those liabilities. You also want to monitor your cash flow, like I said, to ensure liquidity so that you always have enough to spend on the things that you want to do. And also use software to automate and consult a care team. Like I was saying, it's great to have the software there, but unfortunately, if you use it incorrectly, it can be even harder to make it match up again later. When we were mentioning the double entry accounting thing specifically, this is one of my sort of pet peeves in QuickBooks, is that it's super easy for you to go in and see on this bank transaction screen, categorize transactions, and you can click and go, yep, accept that, cool, great. And it feels like you're getting all of your bookkeeping done really fast. And then you notice later that, oh, actually, that transaction was actually matched to an invoice that was in the system, but didn't get stuck together. And so now there's a mismatch where you've got overstated income. So really understanding how the software works and consulting with a care team to make sure that you're using it correctly will help you make sure that you've got everything in there, because it is unfortunately very easy to think that you've done it all correctly and then print those reports off and go, wait a minute, why do I have double income or negative income or something that's really kind of wonky? All right, so that's where we come back to tracking things consistently is definitely the most important part. So there's a lot of other options for ways that you can get help. You're not in this on your own, like I said. One of the things that I'm offering actually this month is going to be our first one. Planning on doing it the second Sunday of every month around 2 o'clock. But if we find that there's lots of interest to do it at a better time, I can definitely be flexible. So if you're interested, you can scan this QR code here to get a little bit more information and fill out a survey so I can reach out to you if you'd like to be a part of this co-working group. We're going to get together every month and just talk about how to reconcile your books to make sure that you're staying on top of it. If you have questions about why isn't this matching up, or I don't really understand what's going on here, I'll be available. Also would love to offer little mini lessons like we've been talking about topics here today. So if you or anybody you know would be interested in just sort of figuring out how do I do this monthly reconciling and what exactly should I be doing on a monthly basis with my small business. It's a great opportunity for people who can't afford a bookkeeper yet or aren't quite big enough and need a bookkeeper to just sort of have a little bit of support in this venue together. And I think I've also got a link to this on those notes from the comments earlier, the chat. So if you wanted to get them there, they're available as well. And then, okay, we're at the part for questions already. That went a lot faster than I thought it was going to, but does anybody have other questions?
Yeah, I have one.
Yeah.
So I'm using a bookkeeper who does bookkeeping on the side. She's quite good. But I asked her recently, I said, well, okay, how many people do you bookkeeping for? She's like, 4. I said, how much of the work that you do for me relative to the rest? And she's like, oh, by far, yours are way more complicated. So I have like 16 projects a month. I do consulting work based on the bookkeeping we need to do. We need to send invoices out every month and yada, yada. And I'm trying to decide, when do I graduate from somebody who does this part-time on top of a full-time job to someone who does this all the time? And I've even paid to train this person in they already know QuickBooks, but I paid to train them in Big Time, which is an online platform we use for timesheets and things like that. And so anyway, so if you have any like professional opinion about just like what's the criteria, when do you start saying, okay, I need a more full service bookkeeping firm?
Yeah.
To make
Honestly,
that
I would
happen.
say, yeah, it would probably depend on like how you're feeling about what you're receiving from the bookkeeper at this point. Because it kind of seems like what you're saying is you don't feel like they're necessarily keeping up on everything in a most timely manner for how complicated it is.
Yeah, I think that's part of it, but I also want a bookkeeper who's a little bit more proactive.
Right,
I
right,
mean, I don't need them to be a CFO, but someone
right,
who's a little bit more proactive. I know that I've heard from other people, they have sort of this regiment of, this is when invoicing are done. This is when we close out the books for the month. This
right,
is when we review them together, and I don't have it that regimented. I mean, I have a full control over the books.
right.
Everything's balanced, it's tracked. That's not a problem. But it's like in terms of like, I don't get ideas from my bookkeeper about, oh, you should think about this. You should think about that, right?
Right. Yeah,
E-
exactly.
e-
I think,
And cash flow forecasting, I'm doing that instead of my bookkeeper helping me do that.
right.
So yeah,
Yeah, it sounds like you're definitely well, like just like we did at the very beginning. If you're checking in with your body and noticing things, like if you're checking in and noticing like, oh man, I'm having these feelings, I'm a little bit like I feel like there could be more here, then that's probably your answer. It's time to start
yeah,
looking for someone who's a little bit more professional, or that's their main gig, or that's what they offer. Because yeah, it's totally
cool.
fine when you're starting off to have I've got a lot of clients. It's like, oh yeah, my sister was helping. She kind of knows bookkeeping, and that's a fine way to start. But when you get to the point where you're like, oh nope, I actually really need things on a consistent basis, and I need somebody who's coaching me, who's being, like you said, proactive and holding me accountable and making me do my homework, then that's definitely, yeah, more desirable. If you can afford it, that's definitely the way to go.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks.
absolutely. Does
I'd say
anybody
I have,
else? Yeah.
it's maybe not even a question in that vein, but perhaps building off of that.
Mm.
What are some milestones that we might be looking for? So in what Rob was talking about, I heard the difference between somebody keeping my books versus having a bookkeeper.
Yeah.
Mm.
Then what might be the next? Is there another small step between having a bookkeeper and having a CFO? Like what might be some other milestones or steps along that path?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think definitely like there's that flow from doing the books by yourself or just having random help to hiring an actual bookkeeper who's going to come in. And then, like I said, that fractional CFO position could be somebody who's coming in and really revamping and doing a lot of change and things with your business. But it could also be like this super bookkeeper. There's actually a group that I'm a part of, that's all about helping bookkeepers be more in line with what the CPAs are looking for. And so that we're really understanding the larger picture and able to help reach out to clients in this way that is exactly what the client needs and what the CPA needs. So I don't know. I think that I don't know exactly when or what the milestone would be, but I think it would probably make sense for you to try talking to somebody who's a little bit more advanced in their knowledge before you necessarily dig in with the CFO. I also am currently talking with, like I said, Alex from Practically Magic Bookkeeping about forming some kind of a collective or a partnership because there are a lot of clients who are in that position of like, well, we really need more help. And Alex is like, well, I'd love to do that CFO part for you. I've got too much work to do as bookkeeping right now. So we're hoping to kind of partner in that way. And if you're interested, I'd definitely be able to kind of talk with Alex about what they can offer in that position as well. Does anybody else have other questions?
Well, can you go back to your slide that, showed the CFO, the CPA, and the bookkeeper?
Yeah.
So I've been thinking of hiring a fractional CFO, but I don't feel like I'm getting enough out of my bookkeeper and my CPA.
Yeah.
And so I guess my question is how do I get more out of them? I guess, is there like a checklist, or is there something that says, here's what you should expect out of these different positions, or here's what they're typically used for, their roles? Um, you know, um,
Or is that
and
a
then,
CFO's job?
yeah, it could be,
Yeah,
right? Because I
I
mean,
would
go ahead.
I would just say like traditionally it's been bookkeepers are mostly about the organization, the collection, the categorization, the organization of all of the data. The CPAs are more about the ensuring compliance with everything for your tax
Right.
filing and making sure everything's there. And then CFOs are more like, here's how we actually can map out the plans for your business. So I don't know. It's a little
Yeah,
bit
but I mean,
like,
like I'm relying on my CPA to tell me when to switch over from an not from I guess from a tax purposes to like a C corp, a B corp or a C corp or an S
yeah.
corp or whatever. And anyway, I don't think there's an answer for this, but I mean, are there firms that do all three of these?
There definitely are. Yeah, there's places out there that are all in one, kind of encompassing for sure. And that's, like I said, something that we're kind of trying to develop for specifically queer sector of Portland business right now. So,
Sure.
but yeah, definitely.
And that's magical bookkeeping, or what was that?
Practically magic. Yeah,
Practically magic. All right.
practically magic. Yeah.
I like it.
If you also need a client testimony, I am a client at Practically
Cool.
Magic Keeping,
Nice.
and we didn't realize that we were just having somebody keep the books, that we didn't have a bookkeeper until we made this shift.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because and I think that's like I said, culturally in this field, sort of a shift that's been happening more and more is that people who were just bookkeepers are now going, oh, I shouldn't just be keeping the books. I should be really doing this bookkeeping and this education piece as well. So,
Makes sense.
yeah, definitely the right path forward, especially if we want to see our businesses be successful, which is our whole job. So, yeah, this has been something that's a huge passion of mine, mostly because when I met my friend about 10 years ago, she had this really wonderful farm to table business, and it was a really great concept. Everybody loved the food. There wasn't a complaint about anything, but she wasn't doing a great job keeping the books. And she was very generous, but ended up going bankrupt, and the whole business had to fail, and we don't get to have this great restaurant anymore. So it's like, yeah, kind of like the saddest thing that can happen when you have this huge dream and this goal and all this work put into your business, and then you just don't pay attention to the numbers enough, and suddenly it's not there anymore. So it's what's inspired me, definitely. And also, yeah, I started off this whole
Carly, you just
business.
unblocked.
Oh, what's that?
Mine is very delayed, so I didn't mean to cut
Oh,
in right when I did. But
no, that's cool.
I had a follow-up question that you just unlocked, but I did see that Genevieve came on, I'm off on mute, and I want to make sure that I am not cutting in line.
Oh, go ahead, Brandon.
Um, oh dang, all this build up in the time lapse made me lose it.
While you're thinking, I'm going to ask a quick clarifying question. Are we identifying keeping the books as just entering the data and the bookkeeper as paying attention to the data?
Yeah, that's
Or
kind of how I would clarify
That's my
that.
language.
If you're keeping the
Mhm.
books, I would say that's just like, okay, I'm just literally putting in what you give me and I'm not really understanding what's happening with it. I wouldn't notice necessarily if things were inaccurate, but a bookkeeper would be able to go like, okay, wait a minute, that's weird. You don't normally spend this on this. Is that true? Or like, I noticed that this has gone way, off course from what it normally is. Just noticing patterns and trends and things like that. Or being able to print off a report and go, why is that negative? That doesn't need to be negative. What's going on here? So
got it.
yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
I remembered my question, and it was sparked on the idea of people knowing that they have a problem or not knowing that they have a problem or not admitting that they have a problem. It feels like each of us on this call might benefit from how do you help people recognize that they need this? Like,
Yes.
is there
Mhm.
anything in our conversations that we can have that could help people understand that this is one of those areas to ask for help?
I think honestly, when you start asking them to explain their financial position to you, and like, okay, where are you getting that information from? Why is that what you think your business is doing right now? What do you think your business is going to be doing in a year from now based on your financial position? That's when they go, oh, well, uh, well, I think, and so if they, and that's the cue to go, so here's where we could find that information. And then you go, oh, do you have QuickBooks? Great. Let's take a look at your profit and loss. Oh, I notice. And then you get to point out all the things that are a little bit weird in that profit and loss going. And then they go, oh, yeah, how did that happen? I thought I was keeping this all correct. Or, you get to a point where they haven't done reconciling for a while. And so you take a look and you say, okay, what's actually going on with your books with the reconciliation process? And they go, oh, I'm supposed to reconcile, it's because you just don't know sometimes what you don't know. And so it's just getting in there and working with people and finding out what are you missing. But I think starting off by asking, what do you know about your financial position? How comfortable do you feel talking about it? Will give you a lot of information and help them realize, oh, okay. Yeah,
Cool.
definitely.
Charlie, I have a question that might be more than you bargained for.
Let's go for it.
But I'll throw it at you and let you decide how to respond. I have a client who is based in Canada, physically lives in Canada, does business in the US, has her own, she's an influencer, so she has like her own thing, but then she also has two different business partnerships. So there's many accounts, but she doesn't yet have her visa or her ITIN. And so her finances are just like all over the place. And I'm curious if you have any tips on, we brought in a CFO, he didn't work out. So I'm still just kind of like, I'm kind of trying to stumble through and figure out some ways to start sorting everything out.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering if you have any tips or best practices on how to sort of sort out a situation where there are funds coming into account that are going to multiple that need to be allocated not only to different like buckets, but entirely different businesses
Hmm.
or individuals or LLCs, or I should be saying, and like it's just kind of all
Right.
over the place. Do you have any tips for me on that?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on if you've got the software, like if they already have QuickBooks set up, there are some things you can do in there. But even without that, you can definitely track your expenses and transactions and things. That's actually a really great segue to a bonus tool that I'm going to share with you at the end here. That's just a way to track all
Awesome.
of the things that might come in and out of your business with explanations on how to do it so that when you are ready to put it into a system, it's all there for you. But yeah, basically, there's definitely some capabilities that you can do in the software where you can tag things as like a separate location. So that could be like a separate company is a separate location. Or if you want to keep it really separate, you can do a separate instance of QuickBooks. And then there's kind of like an overall thing called ledgers that sort of keeps it all into like one thing for you, like an overhead sort of accounting company that has a bunch of other mini companies registered within it. So it depends on how much you need to separate it. I also am helping with a nonprofit that I do choir stuff with right now. And we have two choruses within the nonprofit body. And so we're just kind of treating it as like one business with like two franchise locations. So there's a couple different ways you could set it up. There's also in QuickBooks ways that you can use classes and tags and things for tracking separately. So yeah, there's a lot of ways that you can do it, but I would say just to start off before you're in any software like that, to just start inputting the information into a spreadsheet so that it's organized, and then you could have it go where it needs to go later. It's really helpful.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. I think we're getting close to the end here, but love to keep talking if anybody's got more questions or thoughts.
I'm good. This is great.
Very
Appreciate it.
awesome. Yeah, I'll scoot on to the end
And no
here.
surprises.
I'm so glad. All right. So here we go. Our last one. Information, if you would like to keep in touch. Oh, I think I've got this other stuff here. Yeah. I don't know where the survey link went, but you had it from earlier, apparently. Sorry. So yeah, if you'd like to keep in touch, here's my information. It's also going to be on that page of the notes that I included earlier. Yeah, I guess I can flip back to that other slide to get you the post survey thing in just a second here. What else did I want to say? I feel like there was something else at the very end. I know you all have been really wonderful. I appreciate your patience as I sort of got used to doing this presentation for the first time, but it's going to be a really fun one to share with other people. Oh, also, if you know anybody else who would love help figuring out this kind of thing, please send them my way. I love nothing more than helping other people figure out what they're doing with their finances so they don't make the same mistakes as my boyfriend. All right.
Charlie, you're a member? Yeah. Are you in the
Yes.
directory? Okay, great.
Yep. Yep. I'm there. Definitely.
Awesome.
All right. I think I will, yeah, scoot us back to the beginning really quickly if you wanted to catch that survey link again. Because being a former educator, oops, now I'm now I'm editing. How did I do that? There we go. Yes, I would love to do the pre and the post to see if we made a difference in your learning here. So
You know what, as you were going through there, I was reminded of a completely logistical question that I wasn't going to ask, but since there's time.
yeah.
What is the difference between, for my business, it's consulting, like a cost of goods sold is a very nebulous thing anyway. But what is the difference between a liability and a cost of goods sold?
Okay. So cost of goods sold is something that you are spending before you can create the products or services that you're giving. And a liability is more like something that you're going to owe to somebody else. So if you were to get a loan from a bank or take out a credit card, those things are liabilities.
I
But if it's a
understand.
cost of good, it's just like I spent this money on that. So you could technically you
Do
could
I
have,
actually mean expense?
well, an expense is, yeah, anything that's coming out is an expense, but a cost of good is specifically an
Makes
expense
sense.
that's coming out to spend on the things that you're making to sell. Yeah,
Got it.
exactly.
I feel personally an expert in P&L language.
Nice.
I manage Starbucks's, and
Yep.
so P&Ls are a common thing. But in my business, I'm not buying cups and aprons and whipped cream canisters or anything like that. So
Right.
it's
Really interestingly, in
kind
the
of a
cannabis,
sticky, but that's not even a cost of goods sold.
yeah,
Anyways,
no, it's crazy. The cannabis world is really interesting too because you're not allowed to legally tax your weed sales and everything. So like they're not allowed to write off anything as a deduction like people normally do as expenses. So all of that has to get worked into their cost of goods somehow. It's very convoluted. So yeah, the whole picture is a little bit funny sometimes. Yeah.
Mm.
All right. Any other
cool. Thanks.
final thoughts or anything? I know we're wrapping up a little bit earlier. I debated on whether or not to throw a couple extra slides in here that went a little bit further deep into the accounting thing. So I'm kind of glad I didn't because this is a good conversation, but I might bulk it up a little bit for next time. So
It's all good. This is great.
great,
Never hurts to
awesome.
have a couple minutes between calls.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
seriously,
Yeah,
right?
for sure. Definitely. Well, yeah, if you ever have any other questions, feel free to reach out. You've got my info, but otherwise, I will just. Oh, I should have stayed on the last slide. I wanted to say thank you to Orpib. But thank Thank you. All right.
Yeah, awesome.
Appreciate
Thank you,
that,
Charlie.
guys. Yeah,
Thank you,
thank you very
Charlie.
much. This is
Yeah,
great.
thanks, Charlie.
Have a great day.
Thanks y'all
Yeah,
for being
thanks,
here.
everyone.
See you next
Bye
week,
now.
hopefully.
Yep. Bye.
Thank you so
Awesome.
much. I
Yeah,
appreciate
thank
it.
you. I'm gonna stop the recording.